Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking some massive, rapid-fire shifts happening right now in the WordPress ecosystem. We're pulling all our data directly from W.P. Moore's incredibly insightful issue 47. Honestly, the old assumptions about how a WordPress business works, they're literally being tested on all fronts right now. We're talking AI disruptions, extreme market concentrations, some pretty intense legal battles, and shifting user habits. It's a lot to process for sure, but we're going to break it all down for you. All right, let's dive into a pretty jarring reality right off the bat. 6,500. That is the number of themes in the WordPress directory that haven't seen a single update in over 2 years. I mean, that alone is a staggering number, right? But the real kicker here is that this leaves over 900,000 live sites currently running unmaintained code. That is a massive vulnerability, and it's a huge neon sign pointing to a quiet, fundamental shift happening right behind the scenes.
So, to make sense of all this, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the plugin sales reality. Then, the WordPress theme museum. Third, mentoring the next generation. Fourth, the trademark turf war. And finally, the future of WordPress itself.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, the plugin sales reality.
So, Katie Keith, the CEO of Barn2, made a really fascinating discovery recently. When she looked at who was actually using her Document Library Pro plugin, places like nonprofits, clinics, councils, she realized they were spread across all sorts of platforms. Many weren't even using WordPress at all. It hit her that product makers need to start seeing WordPress as a customer acquisition channel rather than the final product itself. And this sentiment is being echoed heavily by industry veterans like Justin Ferriman. He pretty bluntly noted that the quote-unquote glory days of pure WordPress plugin businesses, they're probably behind us.
And honestly, the data absolutely backs this up. An op-ed by Matt Cromwell highlighted a survey of 33 plugin companies. And get this, around 80% reported flat or even lower sales in 2025. The impact is totally real. One seller actually saw their monthly recurring revenue nosedive from 70,000 euros all the way down to 15,000. So what's driving this? Well, it's like a traffic jam out there. The directory is incredibly crowded, currently getting flooded with over 700 AI-assisted submissions every single week. If you're a business relying solely on organic search, or just selling easy-to-replicate utility plugins, or trying to survive on those unsustainable lifetime pricing models, well, you're the ones feeling the squeeze the hardest right now.
Now, if you're building in this space, take a look at this clear, actionable contrast Matt Cromwell lays out. On one side, we have the traps. Struggling shops are heavily relying on search and lifetime pricing. But on the flip side, we have the survival strategy. To make it, you've got to get much closer to your customers' actual revenue, drastically diversify your acquisition channels, double down on products that AI can't easily commoditize, and, this is huge, fix your pricing model proactively before the market forces your hand.
Let's keep moving. Section 2, the WordPress theme museum.
We have a really deep dive here from Pavel Sjoric, who analyzed nearly 15,000 themes on the directory, and it reveals a ridiculously top-heavy market with some pretty uncomfortable truths. Out of all those thousands of themes, fewer than 80 have crossed the 10,000 active installs mark. But wait, it gets crazier. Just the top 20 themes hold a massive 61.7% of all active installs. I mean, talk about extreme market concentration. And this brings us to a massive disconnect between the builders and the actual users. Developers have completely shifted gears. In fact, 44% of all new submissions in 2026 are block themes. But the users, they just aren't biting. The data shows they are fiercely loyal to what they already know. Classic themes are still holding on to a whopping 91.7% of the non-default install base.
So what does this all mean? We're basically looking at a totally divided directory. The biggest non-default block theme has a solid 200,000 installs, sure, but that totally pales in comparison to the biggest classic theme, which is sitting at over 1 million active installs. Combine this massive disparity with those 6,500 unmaintained themes we talked about earlier, and you realize that huge chunks of the theme directory are quite literally operating as a giant, quiet museum of abandoned code.
All right, on to Section 3, mentoring the next generation.
Now take a breath, because it's definitely not all business gloom and abandoned code today. There is a seriously encouraging bright spot in the community right now, and it's called the WP Credits Program. This is a brilliant initiative that actually brings university and college students into open-source WordPress contribution as part of their academic coursework. And the momentum is just phenomenal. They've already smashed their year-end partnership target for 2026, and we're only halfway through the year, with over 20 institutions officially signed on. It's actually a great case study in trial and error, led by Izata Pereira. At first, they tried having students just do self-directed onboarding. Well, that completely failed. But they learned from it really fast. They realized that mandatory mentorship was the real secret sauce. It absolutely couldn't be optional. Once they implemented that direct mentorship, it succeeded wildly. And that organic success has now evolved into their brand new structure of regional leads, which is rolling out as we speak to give everyone a much better sense of shared context.
So, riding that wave of early success, they're shifting their focus for the back half of 2026 away from just pure growth and laser focusing on quality. They're aiming for 35 institutional partnerships by December. They're also launching a public impact dashboard, which is super cool, and creating a formal alumni retention programs so these grad students actually stick around the ecosystem. Most importantly, they're working hard to build a stronger financial sponsorship base for the mentors who volunteer their time, really laying the vital groundwork for an even bigger push in 2027.
Moving right along to Section 4, the Trademark Turf War.
Okay, we need to talk about the messy legal situation unfolding right now. The WordPress Foundation and WP Engine are currently locked in a highly consequential dispute over the trademarking of two very common industry terms, managed WordPress and hosted WordPress. Essentially, the Foundation has submitted trademark applications for these phrases, and WP Engine has stepped in to file formal oppositions, arguing against locking down terms they consider to be industry standards.
To really grasp the scale of this dispute, let's look at the timeline. Back in February, WP Engine filed its U.S. opposition with the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board. Meanwhile, up in Canada, the Foundation is facing a fast-approaching August 30th deadline to respond to a provisional refusal by the Canadian IP Office. And kind of looming over this whole situation is an October 2027 jury trial scheduled in California, which is part of a much broader federal lawsuit between the two parties.
When you dig into the actual source filings, the nature of WP Engine's opposition actually changes depending on the region. In the U.S., their opposition centers on a fraud claim. They allege the Foundation made a knowingly false sworn statement about having exclusive rights to terms that, according to WP Engine, at least 50 other companies have used for years. In Canada, however, the opposition alleges bad faith. WP Engine claims those specific filings are designed to help Automatic, which is named as the Foundation's exclusive licensee, extract license fees from the broader ecosystem.
But to make sure we're looking at the complete global picture, as reported in WP More, it's crucial to note that despite these ongoing North American oppositions, these exact trademarks for managed WordPress and hosted WordPress are actually already successfully registered by the Foundation in the UK, Australia, and the European Union.
And that brings us to our final section, number 5, the future of WordPress.
So let's take a step back. We've got old assumptions being tested by AI flooding the directory. We have extreme market concentration, where a mere 20 themes dominate everything. There are massive legal battles over core industry terms. And we have user habits that stubbornly refuse to adopt new block formats. Add all that up, and we absolutely have to ask the million-dollar question: where on earth does the WordPress business actually go from here? The landscape is undeniably shifting right beneath our feet, and it's pretty clear that the survival tactics of yesterday just aren't going to cut it tomorrow. Honestly, the absolute best way to navigate these massive shifts and to find those new, innovative paths for your own business or agency is to read the full, in-depth coverage in issue 47. I highly, highly encourage you to head over and subscribe to the newsletter directly at wpmore.net. But I'm going to leave you with this thought. As AI changes the game and legal battles threaten the very terms we use to describe our work, will this ecosystem adapt to survive the perfect storm? Or are we officially witnessing the end of its golden era? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.